For one of the enabling systems on the Volt, since it's the first of its kind in terms of an extended range electric vehicle, the fuel system had to be redesigned. By this we mean we needed to still meet all federal regulations of evaporative emissions control, even though we don't necessarily run the engine all the time to purge out those evaporative emissions, which we do on a typical IC engine vehicle. So for this, we required a whole new steel tank and associated valving that would seal that tank off in case we just drove the vehicle without running the engine. At the time the engine would start, we would then run like a normal vehicle and clean up the evaporative emissions that were held in our charcoal canister. Okay, the potential problem if we didn't seal it, we would just basically be emitting evaporative emissions into the atmosphere. And that's the whole premise of doing this vehicle, number one, is to be a green car. And number two is to now seal it up until we are able to use the engine to clean things up. Okay, so now that we have a sealed system, we're unique in that we don't know when to vent it and when to open it up so someone can put fuel in it. We also have a refueling management button. It's tucked away a little bit, but basically what that does, that starts a control process where the customer says, hey, I'm going to do a refueling event. So let's start the process. And what we do there is we're going to actively communicate with the driver through the instrument panel cluster. We give them some messages. If there's pressure in the tank, we say, hey, wait. And then in a couple seconds later, once we evacuate that pressure, we say we're ready to refuel. At that point, we unlock the fuel door, and then the customer has access to the system. It's vented, so when we displace vapors inside the tank, you can readily fuel up your vehicle.
So there are two different maintenance modes on the Volt that are incorporated into the control system to basically keep track of engine off time, to purge different contaminants out of the oil, fuel, and water that may accumulate over time. So after about 6 weeks, the engine will start automatically and purge those contaminants out of the oil. And then if the customer hasn't burned a tank of fuel in a year's time, fuel maintenance mode starts the engine and starts burning some of that stale fuel off so that the customer can replenish with fresh fuel and not risk any contamination to any components or anything like that. So both maintenance modes you can defer for up to 24 hours. So let's say you're just planning a quick trip to the store. You can defer it for that time and then re-enable it and go on so that you can complete it on some trip that might be longer and more convenient to complete it on. Right, so we keep track of the age of the fuel, and during that time, if the customer chooses to just run it all the way dry, they can do that. Or as soon as they replenish it with fresh fuel, we measure that fuel that's been added to the tank and then recalculate fuel age based on that. And if it goes below the threshold, they'll exit fuel maintenance mode.